Hello, I'm sorry, I missed class the other day. I've been a bit busy. Taking some time off work. You know, usual. You know, you've got to every now and then. You know, go back home, get your life in order. Maybe, you know, travel a bit. Because if you didn't, you'd probably go insane, like a small creature burrowing inside your head. It would probably gnaw out your brain. Things like that. It's absolutely terrifically horrible. Episode 7 of Class, or the Metaphysical Engine, or what Quill did. That's quite a mouthful, isn't it? Deals with exactly just that. Miss Quill has put the rest of the cast in detention, and she's off gallivanting her own little adventure. And it's together with the headmistress, whose name I keep forgetting, but she gets called headmistress in this episode. So is her name just headmistress? I've mentioned before, right? I'm really bad with names. And another alien called a Law. Well, his name is different, but like I said, bad with names. So Miss Quill, the Law, and the headmistress, and this sounds like a very bad setup for a joke, get into this device which is made for travel. And they go to the strangest places. They end up in a weird pink-petaled forest. And I have to say, the design of the locale in this episode, everything is, you know, suitably unique, and it feels great. Like I said, the first they end up in a pink-petaled forest, and this is where we get the premise of the episode. The device they're in actually travels to places created by belief. They're not real, but they're only real in the sense that if there's somebody out there believing in it, it can be travelled to with this thing. Now, some works of fiction have used this before. Terry Pratchett uses this as Small Gods, and he comes back to it a couple of times in his Discworld books, that gods need belief in order to exist. The very same mechanic was used by, Neil Gaiman in American Gods. Neil Gaiman would later return to it several times in Sandman. And so it's not a unique concept, but the way they use it, like creating a plane that exists but doesn't exist, it's playing enough with it that it's a fresh take, in my opinion. So first, the pink-petaled forest is the idea of I believe it was called a non-heaven, the creature that's inside Miss Quill's skull, making her a servant to Prince Charles. So they trap one, and it's basically the size of a kitten, but that makes it quite disgusting to think that Quill actually has something the size of a kitten inside of a skull. Then they travel to the Law's idea of hell. The Law is a shapeshifter, and he was on Earth disguised as a Zygon, which is quite funny, because it's a shapeshifter disguising himself as a shapeshifter who's a shapeshifter as a human. So the Law idea of hell as a shape-shifting species is that they are set in stone, unflowing, and I really like that take. It's a good idea. Like, how do you torment a shapeshifter? Well, you make him stop shapeshifting. Quill and the Law, they connect to each other because they're both soldiers, and, well, can't attack anything, and the Law's devil is, well, a great big beastie. So they connect on common ground, and it's a bit cliche, it doesn't really do it for me, but it works in the story, so it's not something I can hold against it. It's like, it's merely okay instead of, being terrifically good. They end up in Quill, heaven or hell next, and this is the more interesting part of the story. It's a big overcast It seems like a forest, but like a barren forest, like winter has set, and they're in a thorn bush. Do you get what I mean? And the Quill species being called the Quill, everything being spiky is great. And Quill gets to confront her own species god, and they give it a nice little twist that when she doesn't get to talk to it, she laments it. She has a bad time. She gets told, but if you were to speak to your god, which only exists on a plane made of belief because you think it exists, you would have to make it real. So it's like God is only real if you believe in it. Even though Miss Quill herself speaks of the old Quill traditions as archaic and not important, and they've grown past it, it still very much so bothers her because she's the last of her species. And it's a good little bit of character. They end up collecting these items, you know, they're all, it's like a big fetch quest. And Quill gets, well, as you know from the previous episode, gets her eye slashed open, replaced, in a very gross and squeaky, well, I'm not squeamish, but it didn't look very pleasant, let's say it like that. But of course the episode still got like 20 minutes in it, so it can't be that. The brief connection Law and Quill have obviously means they're now having sex, because everything in this series is hotter and sexier than regular Doctor Who. Not to the degree of Torchwood, thank fuck, but it's there. Because why wouldn't you if you've just gone to heaven and hell and had a life-threatening surgery that could have killed you and your aliens, so you doink. Makes perfect sense to me. But again, the episode is still not over. That's only like 7 to 8 minutes of the entire thing. You get to discover the headmistress is outside of where the surgery took place, and it was yet again another plane of belief. They don't mention whose. It's a big sandy beach kind of thing. It doesn't look that cool, but it serves its purpose. The headmistress confronts both of them, and it's, you know, it's a hologram and the villain got away with it, and you know the drill, and because the law's too cool, we get a cliche, oh, we have to fight to the death, but we don't want to, and the law thought he was the last of his species. Turns out there is another, his little niece, so obviously they have to fight. And I have to admit, the way they shot the fight, it was cool, because it starts off while they're still having a conversation, and then it cuts away to the fight, but then it cuts back to the conversation, so you see the build-up instead of both of them immediately trying to go for a gun and trying to shoot everything. To nobody's surprise, Quill wins, but Quill doesn't win by merely beating the stuffing out of him. It's that gun from the first episode that shoots you when you try to shoot it, unless you are Quill. And, well, Law shoots himself. It doesn't seem like he was all too bright in the end. The Law is dead. Quill escapes. What she discovers is the Cabinet of Souls. I didn't say this because, you know, it's meant to be like a twist. And the episode basically stops there. Quill goes back to the detention room and she finds the situation as we left it last episode. This was a fun episode, but I didn't enjoy it as much as I expected it to. I was much more impressed by Detained than this one. Probably because, even though I think Miss Quill is a fantastic character, to me she feels more suitably functional as a supporting character rather than the one pulling off the entire episode. It's far from a bad episode, that's not what I'm saying. It's just not as good as I had hoped it would be. Because while she had an episode to focus on her, I don't think we actually got to know much more about her. And that's a shame, because if you can't do it in 45 minutes, when do you get to do it? In the end, it's an alright episode. I was, I suppose, a bit disappointed. It's fully functional, but it's not as great as I wanted it to be. Well, the next episode is already the last episode, and I haven't even heard anything about a renewal, so here's hoping it goes out with a bang.